Hello. It's time to talk about peer review. Excited to do this. I'm making one video for all classes. So I'm going to kind of try to keep my language more on the generic side because this will be for Comp 1, Comp 2, novel writing, and Intro to Creative Writing. Though with novel writing and Intro to Creative Writing, you'll have a little bit of additional lecture information in another video. For Comp 1 and Comp 2, the principles are all the same, whether this is an in-person class or it is an online class or it's an online live class or a blended class. I'm making one video for all classes. And so there'll be some language where I say, check your syllabus for your due dates, right? Per class and per modality. So there can be some differences there in that vein, but those will be in your syllabus for you for the course that you're in. So I'm excited to do this. I have been working to pull together all of my peer review information into one PowerPoint that will cover everything for all classes. Why am I doing this? Because I do firmly believe that peer review is absolutely essential to your success, not just in writing for a comp class or for a creative writing course, but for life. We learn life skills by participating in peer review. And I'm not going to get ahead of myself and start telling stories at this point. I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation so that I can tell my stories as we go along the way. So with that, I am going to do share screen. Get us where we need to be, which is on this slide. All right. So we are doing screen share now, and I'm going to get the presentation up and running. And we're going to talk about all of the different aspects of peer review that are essential for us to understand and know about as we move into this process. I'm excited. I love peer review. I'm going to go ahead and tell you this. Prior to my master's degree program, peer review was not something I was familiar with, nor was it something I was prepared for. My master's program was in writing. I have a master's of fine arts in writing. And so our entire program was solely focused on this idea of workshopping peer review, so that we were participating in this group discussion over every single thing that we wrote to the entire degree program. And at first it was terrifying. It was so scary. It made me angry, right? So then we need to go back to perhaps thinking about some things that we've discussed in other classes about conflict and argument, whereas the true argument needs to be inside of yourself. And so the true argument I was actually having at that time was, why is this making me angry? Why do I feel like I need to quit? I remember after the first peer review session, the first workshop over something that I had written that I participated in, I drove home that night thinking, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. This hurts. This is scary. I don't like it. This made me angry, and I felt justified. Fortunately, I did not quit. And what I came to understand was I was just scared. And that fear can stop us from being successful. That fear can stop us from moving into a place where we find valuable information and valuable insights from the information that others can glean off of the writing that we've done. And so by the time I graduated, I had come to love the process so much and depend on the process in such a deep way that I felt lost after I graduated. I needed peer review. I needed you to look at my work. I needed you to give me your insight. I wanted your assistance, you, the general public. So I found myself a writing group, and that was a wonderful experience. And I still hold several of those people very dear to my heart. And then that was in St. Louis. And then I moved to Tulsa. And I have some connections here with some writers. I've gotten myself in another writing group, though I'm not as heavily involved in it as I need to be or plan to be in the future. But I understand the value of peer review and why it is essential. Most semesters in my in-person classes, I like to give the students something that I have written myself for them to practice peer review on me. And then they get to discuss it in front of me. And it's this whole dealing with the jitters and getting the jitters out of the way, because reviewing someone else's work can be intimidating as well. And so there's lots of different emotions that are at play here. And I'm starting to realize that I am rambling and talking about things that I don't want to talk about just yet. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to jump in here. And I'm going to move us forward, but not too fast. Apparently my fingers wanted to move 2 slides ahead instead of just 1. But first, let's ask ourselves this question. When you hear the words peer review, what emotions do you feel? Well, initially I told you I felt fear, anxiety, right? And after the first time I was mad. But I had to really dig in and start asking myself after I began to understand the process, why was I mad? Well, I was scared. And I let my feelings get hurt. And those are some things that we need to stop doing. Stop getting angry and stop getting your feelings hurt. This isn't a place for emotions. This is a place to make the work better, right? But we do come into the process with these strong emotions of fear, right? And anxiety. We kind of feel like this fellow, right? He's going to walk the gauntlet, right? To get to the end, right? We don't want to have to walk that gauntlet. You feel like a lion is perhaps stalking you and about to attack as you are stepping into the peer review process. However, after this talk right here that I'm going to be doing for you, my goal is for you to feel like this about peer review. Do not fear this. Yay! That's where we're headed. That's the goal, is for you to be excited about the process. Now, we're going to first begin with my thoughts on peer review, how I have come to understand why it is so beneficial. And then we're going to go into some textbook ideas on peer review and some other professors' ideas of peer review. But first, I want to give you my perspective, right? Maybe I should do this after I do the others, but I'm going to give you mine first. So my thoughts on peer review is that it is, drumroll, a team sport. And you say, what? How is it a sport? Well, let me show you. I personally think peer review is a lot like football. And now you're going to say, wow, she knows nothing about football. Well, that may be true. I was a cheerleader in the 8th grade for the McAllister Junior Buffs. That's like a little claim to fame. I don't know. I can still do 2 or 3 of the cheers. That's pretty exciting. And it's been many years since that time. But regardless, I've watched a few football games in my life. So I think peer review is a lot like football. So let me break it down for you, how I understand it. I, your professor, am the coach, right? So every good football team has a coach, right? The students are all the players on the team. Now, the students who participate in the peer review, because I'm not naive, I understand there will be a couple of you who think, don't want to do it. And so therefore you don't. You figure, hey, the loss of those points, not a big deal. Not stepping into that I'm afraid of. That's your choice. However, the students who participate in peer review are the actual players on the field. Now, you can be a bench sitter and you can stand on the sidelines and not participate. That's your choice. However, it's the students who play on the actual field who make touchdowns. So, our peer review, if you would look at it this way, is a huddle. Right? So the players, when certain things are going on at different parts of the game, they come together and they huddle. They come together and they talk, and it's, quiet in a group. That's our huddle. Solid critique is the football. And we want to give solid critique. We want to toss solid critique. We want to catch solid critique. We want to run with that critique all the way to the touchdown. Oh, yeah. So students who offer solid critique, they're like the quarterbacks. Like, you can see that student sitting way over there and toss the ball right to them. And this one's sitting over here and you can toss the ball right to them. Give them that critique, right? So you're a quarterback. In this game, peer review, we can have everyone's a quarterback. Everyone can be tossing the ball of critique around the session. Students who take peer review seriously and make good edits are the players who make the touchdowns. So you catch that ball. I wish I actually had a football here. That would be so great. You catch that football and you run with it. You take that critique and you go for it. You make that touchdown. You spike that ball. You do your little dance. And you get an A, more than likely. So many freaking touchdowns. So if you participate and make the plays, then the coach's work pays off. So if I've done my work to this point, I've prepared you to write the essay and to participate in peer review so that you all can effectively be the players on the field, and everybody's a quarterback, and that football is getting tossed around all over the place. Touchdowns are happening left and right. Then my work is paid off, right? And at that point, grading is easy. And that's a win for me. A win for you is a win for me, and that's super exciting. And so it's teamwork. If I do my part, you're able to do your part, and then we all walk away winners. So much winning. A's all around, deserved, earned, and played hard for. So that's truly the way I see peer review. But we're going to dig in a little bit more here. So why does peer review work? It's not just that we need to do it, but why specifically does it work? Well, here are a few ideas. Number one, we see our writing through another person. You will never see all of the mistakes in your own work. You just won't. You need the eyes of someone else. They are not in your head. They are outside of your head. So what you think is clear, they're going to be like, that's not clear. Right? I don't get that. What mistakes you don't see, they're going to see. And so it is essential that you have someone else's eyes on your work. Right? So we see our writing through another person. I tell the in-person class a lot of the time, and so I'm going to say it now. You need to look at this as a pre-reader, someone that you're giving your work to before I see it. It's a pre-reader, an editor, if you will. And that's a beautiful thing. All authors have someone who reviews their work. That might just be their editor, but they might have individuals prior to their editor who they trust to give them honest feedback on their writing as well. Stephen King, for him, it is his wife, Tabitha. He writes, gives it to Tabitha. She gives it a yes, no, fix this. And then he makes changes and adjustments based off of what Tabitha has to say. And then it goes to the editor. Only then. Because he trusts the peer review process. His wife is also an author. And so he trusts her opinion, and she's honest with him. We have to find individuals who will be honest with us. Another reason why peer review works is you get to see how other students think and write. So you've all been given the same assignment, and in a peer review group, you're seeing how at least 3, if not 4 other students have done that same assignment as you. See, prior to having this peer review process, you're isolated and you only know how you've answered the question. And so you sit back and you're like, oh, I hope I've done this right. Like, oh, yeah. And you don't really know. But if you're offering yourself this peer review time, you're getting to see how other students have done the same assignment. And so sometimes you can walk away from this feeling like, oh, I actually did a pretty good job. Or, oh, I probably ought to fix a couple of things before I turn this in. But you also might see that someone else had an idea or a thought that didn't even occur to you. And that's intriguing. See, I get the privilege of reading all of your papers. And so let's say this is Comp 1, and the question is Stephen King a literary writer, which we come to at the end of the semester? Everybody answers it differently. But you won't know that unless you're put in a peer review group and you get to read multiple perspectives from other students. And some of your classmates are going to say, yes, he is a literary writer. And some of your classmates are going to say, no, he's not. But the reasons that come to the table, some of them won't even have crossed your mind. And you're going to, oh, wow. Or, oh, I really don't think that's true. Or I don't agree with that. But we can have these moments where we learn new things or have new ideas, and we can be encouraged by seeing the writing of others. We see others' writing strengths and weaknesses. So you might see that other students really struggle with their formatting. It's not just you. And it's easier to see mistakes in someone else's work than it is to see them in your own. So the more that you're practicing peer review and you're helping others correct their mistakes prior to turning it in to me, then you're going to be able to see those same mistakes in your own papers more easily by seeing the weaknesses in other people's papers. But you also might see the strengths in someone else's papers and be encouraged to try something different next time. You know, I really liked what John did there in this essay, so I'm going to try to do that myself in the next one. So you're giving yourself opportunity to expand and to grow by participating in this process. Another thing is we see new ideas and new ways of explaining ideas. So that I already said that. Those are all wrapped up together. You can learn so much from reading and looking at the work of other students. It's a brilliant process. I get the benefit, the privilege of seeing everyone's papers. And when I was working through my master's classes, we did that. We reviewed everyone's paper in the room. The rooms were maxed at 14 students. And so it wasn't unheard of. It wasn't an abominable task to actually make it through 13 other students' papers. Now, in our classes, we're maxed at 20, sometimes a little bit more. So I'm not going to ask you to do that. We will be in peer review groups. And so you're going to be in a group of 4 or 5. So you will be reading either 3 or 4 other papers. But again, I get the privilege of seeing all of your ideas, and that's fantastic. I love that idea. And sometimes it makes me wonder if I should change this up and do it like I used to have to do it when I was in school, when I was first terrified of it and then came to crave it. But I don't know if I have enough time to work that into the semester. It's something I will give some thought to. The final thing here listed is why peer review works. We learn how to look at our own writing in a different way. When you see it through another person's eyes, and when you see the strengths and weaknesses and the ideas that someone else has, you begin to look at your own work more objectively. And you will become more adept at your argument skill as you move forward. The more you participate in peer review, the better your argument skill becomes. And sometimes the argument skill is in your editing and in the peer review process. That's where we craft our work and we really mold it into what we want it to be. And because of that, peer review works. So again, teamwork, we do this together. We must peer review. Why? Tell me why. I want it that way. Tell me why. Well, here's why. We're going to do some more why. I've already told you why, but we're going to do some more why. More about why peer review works. Each essay is made up of multiple parts. And in order to have a strong essay, each part must be logical and effective. In many cases, essays will be written with a strong thesis, but the rest of the paper will be lacking, making the paper ineffective. An essay is only as strong as its weakest point. And again, this is something you may not recognize yourself. You need the eyes of others to help you with this process. One of the most important steps for creating a strong essay is to have others review it. By completing a peer review, you can create a better thesis statement and supporting arguments. It's good stuff. What is the point? The point of peer review is not to make you feel superior when reading someone else's paper. Neither is it to help each other feel better. This is not a rah-rah session. We are not all going to sit around with our pom-poms and go, it was so good. We're going to offer solid critique. We're going to actually try to help our classmates improve their work. And your hope is that they're going to do the same for you. It's not to make you feel low about yourself either. The process here is not to make anybody feel dumb or worthless, right? Even though I felt that way the first time I went through it, I had to take a look at myself and ask myself, why do I feel this way? It had nothing to do with my classmates. That was an internal problem. Once dealt with, I was able to embrace the process. Peer review serves to help each other understand and improve the quality of our work. Reviewing is a constructive process, a part of developing your critical ability. If you want to be a critical thinker, this is a wonderful tool to add to your skill set. Be able to participate in peer review. It teaches you how to analyze someone else's written work and ultimately your own better. It's a good practice. While reviewing, always keep the assignment in mind. Okay? Always keep the assignment in mind. You want to make sure that the students are following what the assignment actually is. Peer review done seriously and honestly is much like the principles of friendship. You give to your fellow writer your opinion with his or her best interests in mind. And remember, someone's reviewing your paper too. So we do this with their best interest in mind. We are wanting everyone at the table to walk away with an A for that project. And so we want to put our best into each peer review so that every student has that same opportunity. Do for them what you want them to do for you. All writers, including professors and professionals, make use of their peers' comments to better their writing. It is a good practice to get into. Currently, right now, I've been going through a series of workshops. I'm in the 7th one out of 8, and it has been peer review pretty much the entire process. We have these discussion threads where we post our ideas and thoughts, and then everyone's able to comment on them and have these back and forth exchanges of ideas. It's so much fun. I like taking what my education philosophy is, putting it out there and hearing what educators from across the country have to think of what I do in the classroom. And then I, in turn, am getting to find out what people in Minnesota, California, New York, Florida, what they're doing in their classrooms. It's been highly entertaining and educational, and I'm so grateful to be in a place now where I understand the value of peer review. And I want all of you to come to that place as well, because this isn't just to help you get through a comp class well or a creative writing class well. This is for work. This is for life. These are skills you will develop and use in every area. I'm telling you that my ability to develop a skill set at peer review while I was working through my master's program has in turn affected my work life and my personal life. I have learned to have thicker skin. I have learned to let things roll off. I have learned to listen to the ideas of other people, and it's been a valuable process for me. So I'm just wanting the same for you. How not to respond? You don't push your opinions on other people. You offer suggestions or critiques. We're not going to be like this. If you don't like my changes, I can always edit your face. No, we're not doing that. Do remember to make your comments constructive and helpful. Use a positive, encouraging tone. Avoid unhelpful comments and an excessive focus on grammar, spelling, and mechanics. So you might, if you come across a paper that has lots of grammatical errors in it, you might make the suggestion that they run Grammarly. Now, if you're a super kind person, You might, and you have Grammarly Premium, you might go ahead and run their paper through Grammarly for them. Don't fix anything, just screenshot it and send them the screenshots. That's what I do when I'm grading a paper that's got lots of errors in it and I get to the first or second paragraph and I'm like, nope, not going any further. I'm just not, because why should I have to spend an hour to an hour and a half marking every comma spot that you didn't pay attention to or even try to attempt to edit, and you spent very little time on it? Why should I spend an hour to an hour and a half critiquing your paper when you probably won't even read the critique? Because if you didn't care enough to edit your paper in the first place, you probably don't care enough to read the critique. And here yet, I'm going to spend all this time trying to help you. I've come to a new place. With the advent of technology and Grammarly Premium, I'm going to throw your paper into Grammarly Premium and I'm going to screenshot each of the sections and I'm going to send it back to you. Grammarly Premium also gives you a grade. So I factor that into the grade that I do end up giving you. Now, if your paper is free from those grammatical mistakes because peer review process really helped you and you've taken some time to truly edit your paper, I won't do that. I don't need to do that. And that pleases me very much. So, little insight into how I function as your professor. So let's make our comments in a helpful way. You don't want to be like nasty and finger pointing and call people names. So we're going to talk more about that in here in a little bit. We want to work hard and be nice to people. Yet we are going to be honest and tactful. If your advice is conveyed in a manner that makes the writer feel defensive, the advice will not be taken and your work is wasted. Don't let your work be wasted. So let's be honest and tactful in a kind way. On the other hand, if you are not constructively critical, then your peer's paper will not be improved. So there is a balance. We need to be honest. We need to give good critique. But we need to avoid being nasty, right? You're so stupid. Why did you do this? This is dumb. Don't do that. Don't write anything like that. You can say things like, well, according to the rubric, you might want to pay attention to this, or page numbers, according to MLA format, are supposed to have the last name next to them. They're supposed to be in the upper right-hand corner. You know, you can use tactful comments. You can use a checklist, right? So I have given you on Blackboard, for each of the classes I teach, you have handouts, and among those handouts is the editing checklist. Well, the editing checklist is a great tool, and I highly suggest that it is a tool that you get out and use for the peer review process. Make sure that each person can check mark each of these things off down that list. Then you've done your job as you know you need to do it, and don't you hope they do that same for you? I would. I mean, for real. But I put here, using a checklist to complete your review will allow you to rate each part of the paper according to its strength. There are many different peer review checklists. You can find them online as well. But the one given to you on Blackboard is expected for this peer review. So on Blackboard, I have given you, and it is an assignment, I have given you, it's called the Peer Review Group Work Rubric Worksheet. And so as you are doing peer review of your classmates' papers, I expect that you will open this up and you will walk your way through this paperwork. You will be using a checklist for each one of your classmates and that are in your group. And then you will also, at the completion of it, be reviewing your group and its effectiveness. So nobody else will see these except you and me. You will upload these onto Blackboard, not in your peer review group. And so I will see these. And so something I want us to all be aware of is the people in your group will be evaluating your group, right? We're going to be evaluating the effectiveness of our group. And I think that's a valuable thing to do. And so we're going to be doing that. I'm kind of pushing that on you because I want you using checklists. So we're going to watch a video now. This one, okay, I've got share sound on. This one is from an English professor's perspective, and I like what she has to say. This is from the Otis College of Art and Design. and I believe her name is Maggie. But we're going to watch what Maggie has to say to her students about the peer review process.
Hello, I'm Maggie Light, English faculty at Otis College of Art and Design. I'm here to talk with you about the peer review process for college English essays, but this method is good for any age student, high school and elementary as well. Author Stephen King said to write in private but edit in public. Peer review or writing workshop is when students read and revise each other's work in class. Your fellow students become your public. Peer review rescues us from confusion. Your first draft is only the beginning of your process and often yields a disorganized essay. We use this process because we're not the best critics of our own work. Ideas that are clear in our minds are often underdeveloped on the page, and we're more connected to our material than we know, even if we tell ourselves it's not very good. But this review process gets us to our goal, generating compelling, clear, concise content. While having others read your work does require that you swallow your pride, the rewards are manyfold. Listen to what some of your fellow writers learned in their latest peer review.
I learned that I need to write more and research more and develop my thesis more.
I learned that I tend to have a cluttered essay but somehow still get my point across to the reader.
One thing that I learned about my paper is that it lacks information. I think I'm going to add some more sources and be more in depth.
I learned that I need to elaborate more on the subject and add more sources specifically from the book.
Getting started. First off, read through the entire essay quickly to get a feel for the content. Then reread the draft slowly, marking on the essay where appropriate. Also, it's important to concentrate, be enthusiastic, focused, and generous while editing. Give the same attention to your partner's essay you hope they give to yours. Ask yourself, why is the student writing this? Is the argument or main idea supported with evidence and significant detail? What is the structure or organization?
So far, you have a good start. You have strong imagery, and you've taken chances with it. I would say that it's a little disorganized, and you should try to link the tree, the headphones, and your bike ride back to the main character.
Feedback. After you've edited their draft, have a discussion with your peer. What questions do you have for your reviewers? Tell your partner what to focus on for their next draft. The writer should leave this process with a plan of action.
And where I circled. And I like your details in your paragraphs. It's really good.
Be specific. Saying this part doesn't work isn't helpful. Noticing specific passages that are cluttered or pointing out claims that are not supported with evidence gives your peer a solution.
This quote's a little long for the summary of the movie. I think you could do that in your own words.
In addition to noting those spots that need revision, recognize parts that worked well.
This analyzation right here was really good, I thought. 1 inch margin. Don't forget that. Yeah, and if you would just focus on one quote and really just get as much going for you, like say as much as you could, I think that would be really helpful for your paper. But I really liked it.
Thank you.
Don't take it personally. We need a thick skin in this process. It's not easy being critiqued, but being able to look at your own work objectively is an invaluable skill. 3 final reminders. Take chances. Be bold. Writer Jessamine West said, "Talent is helpful in writing, but guts are absolutely essential." If you don't think something is working in your partner's paper, it's your job to tell them. The real work is figuring out why it doesn't work. Give yourself a break. Sharing your writing with others is a trying task for the most experienced writer. Remember, we are here to help each other, and there's no such thing as a perfect paper. Lastly, trust your instincts. When you get your paper back, consider the revisions, but remember, you don't have to agree with all of the reviewer's suggestions. If you're confused, ask your peer to clarify. If you're still confused, ask your instructor. Good luck and happy writing and revising.
You, Maggie? She had a lot of fantastic points there. And I love the fact that she reiterates what I said. So we basically said the same things, but she also then included some students to showcase what they have learned and what they're taking away from the peer review process. Now, in the way that she's doing it there with her classes, it is a one-on-one peer review. I'm not a fan of the one-on-one session, although you can for yourself do that outside of class, if you have people in your life who you trust to be very honest with you and give you solid feedback, why not have some of them also review your paper and go over it with you? And that can become your one-on-one peer review. However, in our class, we will be working in groups of 4 to 5. So just because that's the way I want it to be. Now, here are some professors, not just one, but some professors from MIT. And so this video is focusing on peer review, but it's called No One Writes Alone. And I really enjoy this video and what they have to share with us. And so I'm going to play this one for you as well. Again, I'm playing these because I want you to hear it's not just me saying this.
I feel like you have a lot of analysis, but like you don't really, it's not like connecting, you don't really know what it's like going towards.
I would actually just cut this entire section right here.
Do you feel that I should probably address the issue of purpose in my actual thesis statement?
When we think about peer review, it's useful actually to have a sense of how central it is. There's kind of peer review that happens in the classroom where peers, students, other people just like you are looking at your work and you're looking at theirs. Now, on a professional level, that person might be a peer. It might be somebody you've never met. You might be the preeminent scholar in your field, and your peer might be somebody quite junior. Peer itself, just that term, is very open-ended. It's basically anybody else engaged in the same project you're engaged in, trying to understand these basic questions of the discipline.
There's always a need to have somebody else tell you where you're going off course. Nobody writes alone. Nobody finishes work alone.
Peer review is really the feedback mechanism about the quality of our ideas and how well we communicate them. And that's really how academic work moves forward.
The response to one's work, in whatever form it takes, is always crucial. So you want to know simply if people like your work. But you also really want to get, a qualitative understanding of whether or not your work is doing what you intended to do and whether it's satisfying some requirement of your audience.
I wasn't taught how to do peer review. It can be a very mysterious process and certainly a scary one, which is why we need to talk more about how it's done and what it involves.
It's very hard to understand the process until you've done both sides, until you've actually done the reviewing and as well as received the reviewing.
I've talked to all of you, I think, in conference now on this paper, so you've gotten my feedback. And today's peer review is for you to share feedback with each other. The students in my class working on each other's drafts, what they were doing was really helping the writers produce these ideas to their best possible level.
I just thought you could probably combine the first 2 paragraphs. I know what you're trying to get at, but I feel like you took too long to explain it.
If you're a student beginning the process of peer review and you're uncertain about what you might say to somebody, I think one thing to remember is that what you're really doing is providing the experience of a reader. If you keep that in mind, you can't really go wrong.
I really like this. It was personal, but it wasn't too personal that it would feel like you were talking about yourself.
I tell students that they get to say, I liked it, only once per class. They have to understand that there are collaborators here and that it's important to notice what's good in the work, but you have to be focused and specific.
This section here, I might edit to be a little less inflammatory.
We've all had some experience with peer review that isn't positive, whether that's getting reviews on our own work or being put on the spot to say something when we're not quite sure what we think yet.
There is a difference between saying, this piece of writing doesn't work, and you're a bad person. And it's incumbent, of course, on the teacher to make sure that that distinction never gets forgotten in the classroom.
Those mutual newspapers give the effects of the situation in a way which creates negativity in the reader's mind, but at the same time, the document itself remains objective.
When you're beginning to give peer review, what that probably means is you're beginning not only to learn the process of peer review, but you're beginning to learn the process of understanding whatever it is that you're reviewing. That's a perfect time to also begin peer review, not to wait until you're an expert, but to start at that point where everything is new, where you're beginning, because that's when you have the best questions. You have the most capacity to recognize features and to ask about them really freshly.
Do you think that using the term social action to further explain the effect that that has on the audience would be a good inclusion in my essay?
Coming into this class, I had the notion that if I dedicated more and more time by myself to a certain essay, that was going to perfect it. But, really just one word or one sentence from someone else can open up possibilities for me that I would never have realized no matter how long I spent.
Because it's a professional requirement, peer review can seem like a mechanical exercise, but my experience more and more has been that it's a tremendously creative endeavor, and done well is as important to the intellectual process of the work. It's the one place where the author's work becomes truly collaborative.
It's central and it permeates everything we do in academia.
It seems to me that both those seem to be straw men in some sense, right? So I just wanted to have some sense of how you people think about how you respond to that.
It helps us get better at all the other acts we perform in academia. It helps us get better at learning the methods, at creating ideas.
Peer review keeps us on our toes. It complicates and enriches our thinking.
And it's the best possible thing in the world to have a smart person really looking at your work with that depth and regard, such that if you listen to what they say and work with it, you and your work become better.
My writing isn't the best, and I know that. And when people point it out to me, it's always surprising. And today they actually showed me how I could actually fix my essay, which was quite constructive. And hopefully when I go back and look over my essay, I'll be able to fix those errors, which will otherwise make my essay a lot better.
That's exactly right. So according to the MIT video, peer review is central and permeates everything that we do in academia, and I'm going to say in life. Helps us improve our work, opens up possibilities, and complicates and enriches our thinking. So it's perfect to add to our argumentation skill toolbox. Absolutely perfect. So we move on from there. How do we, you and I, do this? So for my classes, how are we doing this? Doesn't matter if you're in Comp 1 or Comp 2 or one of my creative writing courses. When we have rough drafts, these will be turned in on Blackboard the week prior to peer review. All right, so you have a spot where your rough draft assignment is given, you turn your rough draft back in that same spot. Okay? Professor Cunningham, that's me, will at that time put the class in the peer review groups. Now, probably I already have your peer review groups set up, but semantics, right? So at that time, we'll put the class into peer review groups, and you will also upload your paper to your assigned peer review group on Blackboard. So you're going to put your paper in two places. I need to see your rough draft myself in the rough draft spot. But you will also upload your rough draft into your peer review group for actual peer review process. All right. Your rough drafts must be turned in on time. They are 25 points. So this is an all or nothing grade. It's the only all or nothing grade that I do. If you miss the deadline, and I mean even by 2 minutes, 3 minutes, it's late. It's got to be turned in on time in order to get those 25 points. That's like a freebie, 25 points. Just get your rough draft turned in on time. Okay, I feel like that's pretty simple. If it is late, that's a 0 on this portion of your essay or your project. Just making that very clear right here, right now. All right. Now, you will have a specified time according to your course and your syllabus, to review your group members' papers and offer write critiques on their papers. And then you will upload those back into your peer review group on Blackboard. All right. So in your peer review group, I have given you access to the group wiki. And a group wiki, it works similar to like a Google Docs kind of thing where you can open up a document and more than one person be working in it. And so you create a wiki page inside of the wiki, you create wiki page, and you can upload your papers in there. There's a button that has a circle with a plus sign in the middle of it, and you click there to add a file. And everybody can add their file into the same spot. And then you could create a new wiki page where you would put reviewed papers, and then everybody can use that circle plus button to upload the reviewed papers. However your group decides to do it, every group does this differently. You all will decide that for yourselves. I will also give you access to a discussion board within your group, and so you can chit chat with one another back and forth through that. You will also have an email feature in your group where you could email one another. Sometimes I give you the file exchange, and so you can exchange files through there, but I honestly prefer that you are working within the group wiki. Your Blackboard contains handouts on how to do the group wiki, how to use the group wiki. And so those are listed with week 7. Well, depending upon your course. I got ahead of myself by saying that that's for Comp 2. So in your first peer review session area, you will have those how to use the wiki handouts. And so if you need to read those, go through those, they'll be there for you. So for in-person classes, once you have reviewed your classmates' papers inside your peer review group, we will come back together in the classroom and we will break up into our peer review groups in the classroom and have face-to-face discussion of the papers, which is a beautiful, beautiful function of peer review. Having that face-to-face interaction, just like you saw in those videos, is essential really to the full success of peer review. But with the online courses, we're not going to have that option. And so all of your peer review is going to take place inside of that peer review group. You will be reading one another's papers, commenting, critiquing them, and then posting them back into that same peer review group. And so that will be the full process for the online classes. Remember that the goal is A's all around, right? We're all pushing and helping each other towards that ultimate goal, which is the football across the touchdown line, across the goalpost. Let's don't let it tip on the goalpost. Let's let it go on in. Super exciting. It's teamwork. It's teamwork. We do this together, right? We're all reaching for the stars here together. So some things that we need to know and do. Remember, the goals of peer review are 1, to help improve your classmates' paper by pointing out strengths and weaknesses that may not be apparent to the author. And 2, to help improve your own editing skills. The more you participate, the better you get, which is fantastic. So we need to have guts about the process. Have some guts about this process. Put yourself out there. It's exciting. And don't take it personally. Ever, never, never, ever, never, ever, never, ever take it personally. We have to develop that thicker skin. Now, this is my favorite video for every semester of every class. And I'm super excited to share this with you. This is Writing Peer Review, Top 10 Mistakes. 10 mistakes to avoid in the peer review process. So I'm going to play this video for you, and then I'm going to discuss it briefly.
Peer review can be a very valuable exercise for students of all grades. However, some people don't know how to do a quality peer review. Let's take a look at some of these peer review bozos. First, let's listen in as Piggy Patty peer reviews her partner's paragraph. You have 2 ands in your paper. That's too many ands. You call that a period? There's a little line at the bottom. It looks like a comma. Ooh, 1/2 centimeter of your title is not underlined. Oh my gosh, you put such a big space between that word and that comma. If you don't care about the process, it ruins everything.
You spelled cat wrong. It's C-A-T, not K-A-T.
Yeah, sure.
I would rate your topic sentence a 3.
Yeah, whatever.
I would grade your paper a D+.
Cool.
Then there's a person who just wants to interact with all the kids and groups nearby.
Hey, Bobby. How do you spell the word word?
I don't know.
Do you agree with me that... Brian.
What?
My partner wrote the title wrong.
Talk to the hand.
You spelled intellectualizes.
Some peer reviewers give suggestions that do no good because they aren't specific enough. You spelled some words wrong, plus I think you're missing a few capitals.
Where are they?
On the paper.
Where on the paper?
Kind of everywhere, all over the paper. Some peer reviewers don't know how to give their suggestions in a kind way.
Your class number looks stupid.
That's the way I wrote the number.
Are you dumb? You're supposed to put a space between A and a lot.
Gosh, I didn't know.
You spelled dinosaur so wrong, you shouldn't even try.
Fine, I'll go get a dictionary.
Some people don't have a clue when it comes to volume.
I love your topic sentence. Wow, you used the word plethora, which is such a rich use of vocabulary. I think you spelled Pachypalosaurus wrong.
Have you ever worked with someone who insists on you taking her advice?
Fox is spelled F-O-A-X, not F-O-X.
Why don't we go get a dictionary?
Just change it. Do you, not trust me?
I think it's spelled F-O-X.
Just change it.
Well, it is my paper.
Listen, that's the way my mom spells it, so if you don't change it, you're going to be insulting me and my mom.
And I'm sure we've all done a peer review that got a little off topic.
I just did 5 push-ups. Yeah!
I don't really understand that sentence right there.
I can't wait till my birthday. Wait, it's in December. That means I get to go to Chuck E. Cheese's.
Are you going to help me with the sentence?
Did you hear that?
I like that word you used.
I like frozen yogurt.
Have you ever worked with someone who thinks peer review is a race to the finish?
You wrote in your margin.
Well, how can I fix it?
You wrote a summary, not a response to literature.
What am I lacking on?
Well, nothing. Well, your topic sentence needs a little changing.
What would you rate it?
I don't know. Number 4. How would you...
And lastly, a good way to ruin a quality peer review is to take the feedback personally.
Hey, Dave, you forgot to underline your book title.
Well, why do you always bug me about it? It's just a little title.
I'm just saying.
It's my paper. I can do whatever I want.
Jeez.
What grade do you think I deserve?
I'm thinking maybe a C+.
Yours isn't that great either.
Wow, we're not talking about my paper.
Why are you always picking on me?
All right, that is seriously my favorite video of the entire semester. So much gold inside of there when it comes to peer review. So let's take a look at each one of these. It's really hard for me not to talk the whole time. When you're watching a favorite movie that you've got memorized and you want to quote all the lines. Yeah, that's how that video is for me. Listen, if you don't change it, you're going to be insulting me and my mom. I think you spelled Pachypalosaurus wrong. Oh, it just makes me laugh. Anyway, let's dive into each one of these. So, Picky Patty, you're not here to be the grammar guru. You're not here to be the know-it-all Nazi when it comes to grammar. Like I said before, if you can see that this paper needs run through Grammarly, tell them so. All right. It is not your job to sit down and mark every spot that needs a comma or needs a comma removed, or every sentence that's a run-on sentence that needs periods and how many comma splices you come across and etc. and so forth. That's not why we're here. Okay. We are here to make sure that the paper's format is correct, If grammar is off point, we want to tell them to run a grammar check. And we want to look at content. All right, so don't be picky Patty. And don't be whatever William. You have to care about this process. In every group, we need to have strong members because all it takes is one weak link for the group to not be successful. And that can get really frustrating sometimes in the class or in a peer review session. And I will have students contact me and say, you know, there are 4 of us in the group and only 2 of us have turned papers in. What do we do? That's not fair. That's not fair to everyone in the group. If you are going to have, perhaps maybe you have a medical issue or something that's going on that's going to keep you from participating well in your peer review group, message me outside of class prior to peer review being a thing so that I can ensure that I can adjust the groups so that every student who is participating gets the full effect of this venture. It's not fair for your group mates if you choose to just give this a lackluster performance. So please don't be whatever William. Please do care about the process. Please bring your best to the table because you realize that this is about everyone. It's not just about you, it's about everyone in the group. And so with that, though, we don't want to be social Sammy. And this really applies to my in-person classes and my online live groups. We're not going to be social Sammy. We're not going to talk to everyone else in the room. We're not going to sit in our group and talk about things that are off topic. We want to stay in our group, talk to our group, and not let this be social hour. In the in-person peer reviews, I can eavesdrop and listen in, and I will say, over there, sounds like y'all need to get back on task, right? This isn't time to talk about dinner, right? We're talking peer review. And I love it when students, well, we ran out of things to talk about. Oh, is that a dare? Did you just dare me to walk over and point out some more stuff for you? Because I can, and I will. Don't be Gene the generalizer. Oh, this cracks me up, right? Don't be Gene the generalizer. So your paper has some mistakes on it. Well, where are they? On the paper. All over the paper. Okay, that helps. Thanks, Jean. Let's be specific with our comments and our critiques so that our classmates have an opportunity to consider our critiques and to actually make some effective changes. We are not here to be mean Margarets. No, mean Margaret, don't say mean things about the writers of these papers. This is not why we're here. I will never forget this occurring once during my master's program. We were sitting in a course, and I've never forgiven the instructor for this, and I probably need to let it go and move on. But we were sitting there, and it was a memoir class. And so we had each written a memoir, and a classmate of mine, because I'm putting this online, I'm not going to use her name, but a classmate of mine, let's call her Lynn. Lynn had written about her suicide attempt. And it was a very intense description of ramping her car up to a high speed on the highway and hitting a post under the underpass on purpose with the intent of taking her life. So we're sitting there and we're discussing it. Remember, in those days, there were 14 of us in the class, plus the professor. And so we're all sitting around, and 13 of us are discussing Lynn's paper. Sitting next to me was someone in administration in the school, because when you work for a college, you tend to be able to take classes for free. And so he was working on another master's degree just for the kick of it. And so he's sitting next to me, and there was the head of security was in there as well. She was taking the program. Quite a few of us in the room. I don't remember who everyone specifically was, but I remember those two specific just because this event was so shocking to me. But people in positions of power within the school, plus the professor is sitting in the room, and I'm not going to use that professor's name. So we're sitting there, and Lynn's paper is the one that we are reviewing. And a person down the row from Lynn. So, and during our peer review sessions, let me qualify by saying this, we were, as the writer, not allowed to speak And our papers were reviewed by our classmates for an hour. And so you sat there for an hour taking notes and listening to your classmates discuss your writing. And so we're discussing Lynn's paper. She's sitting there, she's being quiet, she's taking notes. And this person down the row from her, we'll call her Jane. Jane goes, I don't know what to say other than this writer's a bitch. This is the most selfish thing I've ever read, and like launches into this attack on Lynn. And I'm sitting there still somewhat introverted at this point in my life going, somebody do something. This is against the rules. This is not what we're supposed to be doing. And I'm a rule follower. Like I am a rule follower. So I'm like horrified that this is taking place. And I'm looking at the guy next to me who's an administrator at the school. And I'm thinking, you going to say something? No. I'm looking at the head of security. Are you going to say something? No. I'm looking at the professor. She said nothing. And I lost every ounce of respect for that person in that time. So I spoke up and I interrupted and got us back to talking about the writing itself and off of that. And I went up to Lynn after class. That was a very scary thing for me to do, by the way, but it turned out to give me a feeling of I don't know, righteous indignation, I suppose. I was going to say power, but I don't know if that was the right word. But I knew that I had done the right thing. And so after class, I went up to Lynn and I tried to apologize for the behavior of the class and for the professor. And she had been crying and wiping her eyes all through that. And we talked briefly and then she left. And for the remainder of that course, she didn't say much in the classroom. She didn't participate in that group. That's not what we're here for. We are not here to be mean, Margaret. We are not here to hurt people. Now, karma is a bitch. And I will say this. Lynn, air quotes around her name, is a book publisher now. Jane is not. Hoo-hoo. Anyway, mean Margaret, don't be mean. Don't be nasty. We are here to help each other. Peer review is to be helpful. I'm not going to be loud, Larry. And again, this applies only to in-person groups. Some of us are loud. The extroverted me, once it finally came out of the shell, tends to be loud. And oftentimes I find I don't need a microphone. That's that cheerleader diaphragm thing. You know, you can just like extend your voice without a technology resource. And so when you're in a group and the intent is to have a private conversation, you need to make sure that your level matches what you're doing. Pushy Paula. You can't push your ideas on other people. You can just offer them. Right? And if people are pushing their ideas on you, you don't have to take everything they say. You can just sift it. Take notes, sift it. What do you think your paper actually needs from those things that the people have offered to you? You can sift through that information. You don't have to change every single thing that someone points out. Off Task Oliver, that goes up there with Social Sammy. Let's stay on target. Just stay on target. Speedy Sandy, don't rush through people's papers. The girl's asking her for help and she's all, number 4. No. Don't race through things. Give to others, again, what you would want them to do for you. All right. If you want a good critique from others, then give a good critique to them. And don't be defensive, Dave. Don't take any of this personally. None of this is to be taken personally. This is about making the work better. All right. Super exciting. Super exciting. Champion yourself and say, I am ready for this. Because we should be. Now, I do understand that there are stages of emotion in the peer review process. I've been through them myself. There perhaps might be denial, like, I don't have to change that. You're wrong. Anger, What the bargaining? Well, if I change this, can I keep that? And then depression. Oh, my paper is so bad. I'm such a bad writer, blah, blah, blah. And then acceptance, where you finally go, you know what? I need this review. I need your opinions. Thank you very much. It's normal to feel these different ways, y'all. We all want to work towards feeling number 5, acceptance. Now, some reiteration. Use edit lists, editing checklists, and rubrics. To conduct a good peer review, use your tools. That's why this page is in red. Everything else has been in teal, which was my mama's favorite color. So I'm using teal for that. But red means this is serious. Use editing checklists and rubrics. And then remember, just as someone else's grade could be in your hands, so is your grade in their hands. Teamwork. Yes. Super exciting. Remember, I am putting the peer review group work rubric worksheet in for you. This is for a grade. So you will fill this out. I think we probably should take a moment and look at it, but we'll look at it after the PowerPoint presentation. I'll pull that up. These are going to be worth 25 points no matter which class you're taking. So you fill this out, turn it back in after your peer review session. Don't let any of your peer review group members see it. This is just between you and me. That is 25 points. Now, you're going to peer review. Woohoo! Yeah! So exciting. On Blackboard in your peer review groups, you will receive papers to critique. Use the peer review group work rubric worksheet to review and critique your classmates' papers and write and comment mark on their papers as well. So 2 things you're going to be doing. Upload peer-reviewed papers to the peer review group. And then this is just a reiteration again of things I've already said. In-class students, we will discuss the papers in our peer review groups in the classroom. Online classes, your peer review consists solely of using the peer review group online for your peer review session. Upload the peer review group work rubric worksheet to Blackboard once completed, not to your peer review group. Has anybody got any questions? And everybody. Yeah, that's like a nightmare scenario. Unless you haven't prepared a very long talk, and when everybody has questions, that's awesome because then you can reach your time limit. That's awesome. So after your peer review, just a couple things to go over for after your peer review. First of all, keep calm and take stock of everything that's been said about your essay. From time to time, you're going to get frustrating comments. Even though it may sometimes feel like the reviewers haven't spent enough time with your work, they're overly critical or lack the right expertise, remember that a lot can get lost in translation. Always start by assuming reviewers have the best intentions. 2, bear in mind that the goal of peer review feedback is to verify and strengthen your work so that it is ultimately a more effective communication. Reviewers are a good representation of the journal's general readership, and their reactions can help you craft a better, clearer publication for your audience. Without the perspective of a reader, you don't know how to make this more open and welcoming and viable for the actual reader. Peer review does this for you. After reviewing your manuscript comments, it might be helpful to take a step back and clear your head. When you come back to it, ask yourself, what are the fundamental issues the reviewer wants me to address? So this is from plos.org, how to receive and respond to peer feedback. So you can use this as a source. You can open up this link from the PowerPoint and dive into more information if you would like to. I just took a few pointers from it. Set a plan for your revision after the peer review. Don't ignore any comments. You do not have to accept all of them, but do consider them. Think through the suggestions, consider your audience, and the fact that your reviewer was, in essence, a first audience. This is an important point. Number 2, make a list of essential versus non-essential peer review suggested changes. And you don't necessarily have to make a list, but do be able to sort through and recognize what is essential and what is non-essential. Decide whether you need to conduct further research to build your argument. You might need to do more work. You might need to do more research and add some things to your paper. If so, have somebody standing by, maybe one of your classmates, or like I said, have somebody in your life who is going to be honest with you to give you a second peer review after you make some edits and changes. Now, my in-person classes, we use a whole week for this peer reviewing. And so on Monday, let's say, we'll do our initial peer review, and then everyone has 2 days to make any changes. And then we come back on Wednesday to do a second peer review. And that's a great thing that the in-person classes have. With online, that's going to be up to you guys and what you choose to do. But I do highly suggest after you make some edits, get someone to look your paper over again. Decide whether you need to conduct further research, and then complete the edits to your essay that are drawn from peer review, and consider having 1 or 2 of the reviewers reread your paper. Look, I got ahead of myself. I do that a lot. And go hug yourself. You've done a good job here. Build in a little extra time for a final review. Once you've updated and revised your manuscript, give yourself a little leeway. Let the paper rest for a day or 2. Oh, much like we did with our initial rough draft. And then give it another read once you have emotionally disentangled from it again. Checking to make sure that your edits make sense with the rest of the paper. And then here again is that link for you to go in and review the entire article. Conflicting feedback. You may come across some conflicting feedback in between your classmates. It's almost inevitable that you will encounter reviewers who disagree on a course of action, or even an editor who disagrees with the reviewers. And here are some tips for navigating each case. The reviewer versus editor. In general, the editor should be able to provide commentary more closely aligned with the journal's scope and editorial policies. So an editor such as myself or the Writing Center individuals, we're going to be looking at it because you can use the Writing Center people for a review as well. But we're going to be looking at it more along the lines of, does this follow the assignment, right? If the editor disagrees on a suggested edit, you should cite the editor's comments in your response to the reviewers. Okay, so that may or may not apply, but you might have taken your paper to the Writing Center and then come to peer review. And so, you know, as people are saying things about your paper, you can compare that against what the Writing Center individual said. And you can draw from that the conclusion that you think is going to be best for your paper. So reviewer versus reviewer, so 2 peers. When 2 reviewers offer conflicting advice, your editor, the Writing Center individual, may be able to provide guidance as to the assignment standards and which course of action they feel is more appropriate. As before, be sure to cite the editor's advice in your response. You can, you know, in a paper, you can cite the Writing Center people too. I mean, ask for their opinion or ask for their permission to do so, but that'd be fun. If the editor hasn't provided clarity in their response, ask a colleague familiar with your work and check in with the co-authors for a second opinion. Second opinion is always a great idea. And then rely on yourself. Ultimately, the decision to make any changes is up to you. Provide a clear and defensible response to your reviewer, citing your reasons for complying or not complying. But listen, in our peer review processes, you don't have to tell them which ones you're taking and which ones you're not. That's not their business. That's between you and me at that point. You're going to turn in a final paper to me, not to them. Once you're done with your peer review processes, they don't have to know if you took their advice or not. So it is up to you. What do you decide to keep and what do you decide to toss? All right. So we don't have an editor per se, but the principle is the same. You will receive conflicting feedback. Consider it all, then rely on yourself. You decide what becomes your final draft. And then you're going to make your final edits. All right. So hopefully you've given yourself enough time to make your final edits and that you're going to use your time wisely. We're almost finished here, right? Take your time with this process. And I hope you have really given this some thought ahead of time and that you're not rushing and you're not procrastinating and that you are laying out a time schedule for yourself so you can effectively walk through this process. And again, I remind you, this peer review thing that I'm talking with you about and trying to help you understand is not just to pass a Comp 1 class or a Comp 2 class. This is life skills. This is how we manage to navigate argument. We need peer review on our ideas. We need peer review on our work so that we can push ourselves toward our best work in the long run. So take your time. Don't last minute yourself. Do use the editing checklists that are given to you for these classes. They're on Blackboard. Breathe. You have outlined, researched, edited, participated in peer review, edited again, and breathed, hopefully. Now, turn in your final draft, knowing that you've done good work. Once you've done all of these things, you should feel good about the final product and what you're going to be turning in to your professor. Boom. Yes. Now, make sure that your peer review group work rubric worksheet is turned in and your final draft is turned in the appropriate places. And that, my friends, is my peer review talk. If you have any questions, you have the water cooler segment there on your Blackboard course shell. You can ask questions in the water cooler. That way your classmates might be able to answer your questions, or me. I like to jump in there as well. But you can also text me, you know that number. So you can text me any and all questions that you may have about the peer review process. Maybe if you're just feeling a little nervous and you need somebody to tell you, it's okay. That's what I'm here for. So you can reach out to me for that. I'm happy to encourage you. For me, peer review is essential. I absolutely love the peer review process. I crave the peer review process. I love getting other people's eyes on my work so that I know what's doing good and what's not. What are some areas where I'm lacking? What are some things that I need to further improve on? I have to have the opinions and the ideas of other people in order to be able to do that. And so that's why I push this so hard. I want you to understand the value of the peer review process. So again, I'm going to say, if you have any questions whatsoever, just reach out. You know how to do that. And I'm going to let you go. All right. Have a great peer review.